Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast, brought to you in partnership with FootJoy. I am Tom Mills. Today I'm joined by Sam Williams. Sam, welcome.
Thomas, my esteemed colleague. Great to be in the office.
We are podding. We are video podding live from the office. We are going to be sort of unwrapping a recent Wales trip that we did.
Lot to unpack.
Yeah, we a high-level summary before we dive into the nuts and bolts of it. We drove from the Midlands, went across to Welshpool. Very nice course, played Welshpool. Moved across, stayed the night in Harlech, Royal St David's, then went down to Borth Ynyslas. Drove back up, played Aberdovey, drove back down, played Tenby, drove a little bit some more and played Pennard, and ended up coming back. 6 courses, 4 days, very, very tired humans, bad weather, great courses. Where do you stand on all this?
Gosh, there's so much to unpack. Quite looking forward to it. I think the Tour Diaries podcast are the most fun to record. Historically, we've done them sequentially. Like, we've just literally followed our steps around and given takes as we go. But I'm desperate to try and put a rigor and routine around this, Tom.
Surely the steps is rigor and routine.
Well, I just, we sort of just mosey off like, oh, we did this, then we did this, then we did that. So I'm quite keen to chat, I guess, about the trip in itself and the itinerary and the genesis behind it. Important trip for you spiritually, I think it's fair to say. And a little bit about our golf. I think I don't get enough of my golf into these podcasts, so that'll be welcomed by our listeners, right. I'm sure. And then the meat and bones of this is going to be really about the courses, which I thought were the absolute star of the show. There was you, me, a friend of mine from school, Jim.
Which we had a bit of a debate about. I forgot to press record the first time we started this, so we lost 2 minutes.
We were only a minute in though, weren't we?
We lost 2 minutes before I realised my dog broke in, and all very professional stuff. But we did have a debate about whether he's a friend of the pod. I don't think so. I think he's just a friend who listens to the pod.
I don't even
has
know
done
if he
some
listens to
modelling
the
for us
pod.
before. Good-looking chap. Tried to come on the podcast, but I don't think he's ready for it yet.
No.
He was a bit... I don't think the weather agreed with him.
I think tough last day of tour, it's fair to say. I think his spirit was firmly snapped in two. Yeah, but it's lovely being back in the office, Tom. It's a bit messier than when I was last here a couple of weeks, but we've got pictures on the walls. I think we've done I would actually quite like to do a little blog post about some of the pictures that we printed off, because they all have some sort of meaning, I felt.
Well, everything in here's got meaning. I mean, you've got some of your pictures. You've got one of Rye I'm looking at over there. That picture just above it is a poster from the Country Club book line that Lee Wybransky gave to us when we did the 150th Open. So
Clyde and Squirrel.
The Clyde
it's
and
not
Squirrel.
Designed by Clyde Johnson, recent
or
guest
Mr.
of the podcast.
Squirrel, no. They've all got something. I've got a beautiful print up there that Joe McDonald gave me of the old course.
And a big announcement. We've officially we've taken on an official biscuit partner for the office.
Yeah.
Which I think, if you're trying to run a startup media business in today's day and age and you don't have an official biscuit partner, like, what are you playing at? Would be my honest thoughts, really.
The St Andrews Bakery Company kindly sent us over some golf balls, which are not things you hit with. They are like a protein ball, but they also throw in some rather delicious ginger biscuits.
Well, actually, Jim just came to a golf. They
were
to our
supposed
spring
to come
meeting
on
last
tour with
year.
us.
They were, and we had a lot. We wouldn't have fitted anything else in that van. But no, Jim came to our event last year, spring meeting. So if you hear some gnawing on delicious ginger biscuits and
I'll try to
protein
crunch
balls.
on Mike. Not a good look, I don't think.
So I'd like to kick this off then, Tom. Let's try and stick to sort of a bit of an agenda. Genesis and the itinerary of this trip. You've talked about this for a while. I guess for our listeners' benefit, why did we go to Wales, in your opinion?
We went to Wales because you organised it. But I've always gone on about playing golf in Wales. I've played a handful of courses. Being Welsh, born and raised in Wales, left Wales when I was 18, went to university, found a woman, never went back. Parents still live there, but I've played, Porthcawl, a handful of parkland courses in and around Wales. I actually worked in a bar in Pontypridd Golf Club when I was up until I was like
where
20,
Philip
21.
Price played or something.
That's right. That's where Phil Price played his golf. Yeah, learned his golf up in Pontypridd Golf Club, but I didn't play golf. I only picked up golf when I was 28, so never really played golf in Wales. It's a bit difficult when you go back to see your parents to be like, right, I'm just scooting off for 5 hours, see you in a bit.
Yeah.
So I've always wanted to kind of get across and see things like Harlech and things we still didn't do, like Neffin, Conway. Still really keen to go and see those places. Heard so much about, some of these and heard not much about some of these, which was, the itinerary you came up with. How did you, what was the genesis of the itinerary?
For me, the reason behind the trip was, I think Welsh golf is hugely overlooked, but I hadn't played a huge ton, so maybe it wasn't overlooked, and I think some of that was trying to sort of get to the nub of it. Been very lucky playing a little bit at Porth Court, but in different events, and regular listeners to this podcast will know that we've played a little bit at Porth Court over the last few years. But apart from a trip to Aberdovey and Harlech, as I'm going to say I was like 13 or 14. You're going to joke, I was very young, as I say about all these places. But I played a load of little places.
Why do I tell that joke?
Well, because I said I'd played Cleve Hill when I was very young, and I stand by that.
There's no circumstantial evidence. There's no evidence whatsoever.
The club haven't kept their records up to date, so it's not my problem. But I played it when I was very young, and I remember it being really nice. But apart from that, I suppose the overriding feeling was golf in Britain is become really, really expensive. Green fees are really high. Demand is extremely high to play, particularly places, Northwest Coast, clubs like Formby, West Lancs, Wallasey, Hoylake. These are really on the international travel map. And I guess looking at Wales, it feels like there's probably something to be had that's just a little bit more off the beaten track, exceptional golf, and I was determined to unearth it. But you asked, how did we get to the itinerary? And that was quite tricky, actually.
Wales certainly feels like a road less travelled. And obviously, as we are hoping to create films about these places as well, it's difficult to come up with places that hasn't been done. Ireland's been done to death. England's been done to an extent. We did Netherlands a couple of years ago. So, yeah, excited to do some filming over there, try and showcase what we've got to offer.
Yeah, and there was loads of recommendations we've had on and off from people over the years. There was a few that stood out, like knowing that we're going to drive from the Midlands into Wales. I mean, we should say the Welsh coastline is a bit of a haunt for people in the Midlands. Like, I think that goes way back for 100 years because it's quite an easy place to get to, and therefore towns like Aberdovey and Harlech are kind of infiltrated with lots of people from the Midlands with holiday homes and such like. So I knew we were going to drive probably over the border, and I'd heard loads about Welshpool. So Welshpool, I was kind of imagining something a little kind of, that sort of moorland rolling terrain, sort of really ancient green sites, a little quirky. So that felt like a sort of slam dunk on the itinerary. And then there was probably a few, I would say, sort of like highlights that I really wanted to do. First of those being Harlech, hugely revered club in Wales.
You do have evidence that you did that when you were very young.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know if they didn't have iPhones then, but I will be able to get my dad on to attest to this. Harlech, going back there. Aberdovey, a huge haunt for Darwin, and Pennard had heard so much about. And then how we topped and tailed it with the rest was a bit tricky. I'd heard loads about Borth Ynyslas, a club that, has, faced closure. And it felt like that was going to be quite a sort of raw experience. Then Tenby, a couple of friends had been to Tenby, didn't know much about it, driven past it once. Again, for some reason, I was quite curious to see what that was like. But it was, I would say it was pretty... I mean, I had to make some difficult decisions. Cardigan was a club I'd have loved to have visited. Mm-hmm. We really wanted to go and see St David's City.
We got more of Cardigan as the trip progressed as well. People that we're chatting to telling us, are you visiting Cardigan? So that feels like one we've left in the chamber.
Is it Port Maddock? Port Madog? How would you pronounce that?
I've never even heard of it.
Back nine, meant to be superb. Places like Neffin, stunning scenery. There's places like Conway. There's a whole load of different places.
We drove like due west, hit the coast and turn south.
Yeah.
Which that basically ruled out everything like Conway, Neffin, which is all in the
Correct.
north of Wales. So we couldn't, obviously you can't do it all. So
Yeah, and we sort of
that
came round in that loop. So I guess what we're probably going to unpack, I suspect there's going to be a pretty solid recommendation for golf in Wales within these podcasts. But
spoiler alert,
yeah,
it was mind blowing.
yeah, I mean, the golf was far better than I remembered it when I'd been and what I expected going in. Far, far better. The itinerary, if you were to say, great, I'm going to go and do that trip, I would advise against it.
Only doing it the way that we did it, because I suppose perhaps this is Wales' strength and its weakness at the same time, is in the northwest you've got them all bunched together. So it's like, you want to do Hoylake, Wallasey, they're 10-15 minutes apart. If you want to go do Formby and Southport and Ainsdale, again, really close. So it's kind of, it becomes a destination where these Welsh courses are all really good, but they're all just a little bit further apart from each other.
Yeah.
So we didn't do it a particularly economic way. However, hour and a half to Welshpool, hour and a half to Harlech, an hour down to Borth, 45 minutes back up to Aberdovey, 3.5 hours down to Tenby, an hour and a half to Pennard, and then you've got 3.5 hours to get home. So it didn't really make sense. We needed to fit it in. We wanted to see the places. If you are an absolute mega fan of golf and you don't have much time, then do what we did, because all the courses are worth going to. However, if you fancy sleeping, if you fancy not driving forever, probably not. The itinerary is not perfect, but the course is absolutely worth. So
Well, I think the clocks hadn't changed either. So we still had a bit of daylight because we had early starts and the clocks hadn't moved. But nonetheless, I mean, if you were going to attempt that, you really need to have a run at it in June, I would say, don't you? Because you need to give yourself time. Like I felt like there wasn't enough time to go and really sort of dig around in Harlech. I mean, Aberdovey is just a glorious little place to stop and spend some time. If we're playing Cardigan and adding that in there, Aberaeron, place where you're from, it was like that was just the most picture perfect little town that you wanted to spend time in. And the drive is actually quite nice.
yeah,
Like really nice scenery.
Welsh miles.
Yeah. But
Takes a
Welsh
long
miles are
time.
mental. They're worse than Cornish miles.
Yeah,
Like that drive from, how far was in miles was Aberdovey
to Tenby.
Was it like 70
It
miles?
was about 60-ish, yeah, 65.
It took 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, yeah, maybe it's a bit more than 65.
Yeah, but we weren't doing much more than 30 an hour, were we?
no.
Like it was crazy.
And it's all lanes. It's not even B roads. It's lanes and yeah, it wasn't conducive to travelling with an economic fashion.
Yeah, but and maybe because the courses are spread apart a little bit, I think I sensed there was a little bit of friendly competition amongst the clubs we visited. Certainly around the dates they were founded, I still am completely vexed as the first golf club in Wales. I'm relatively certain it's Tenby, but then there's
In Aberdovey, they set up the Welsh Golf Union.
Borth claimed they were the first people to ever have golf played, but there's a great little quote on the top 100 pages where they're like, no one has ever produced anything of any validity to say that's the case.
Well, it's like you play golf in Cleve when you're very young. It's just when you say it. It's
Harlech
true.
has the most history as a place, and again is pretty early. But yeah, there's a whole load of that, and maybe it's because they're all sort of in slightly different districts. There's a bit of maybe competition a little bit, but actually as a destination, Wales totally stands on its own 2 feet.
So we've never really talked about this publicly. Yeah, we've talked about it privately quite a lot. The Kent coast absolutely nail working together as a team.
Yeah.
They specifically, Royal St George's, Princes and Royal Cinque Ports work together as a trifecta really well. They promote each other. They say good things about each other. And they promote the area as a destination. Now, nearly everywhere else we've ever been to bags the course next door. Like, oh, you won't like that. No, it's just not good enough. No, you won't like.
It's just a bit,
Yeah, and it was we're not saying that these clubs are bagging each other, but they're not giving you a glowing endorsement of the other clubs. They're like, oh yeah,
they're like sort of like negs, aren't they? Have you ever read, what's that book where is it the
game?
The Game.
Yeah.
And you sort of say how to pick up a girl, and you sort of say, oh yeah, I like your dress. Yeah, my mum's got that dress or whatever. They're like sort of backhanded compliments, aren't they?
Chewing gum.
And they go, that's lovely over there. It's very flat, very nice course. They say things like that. But I think that's just born purely out of, I think there is a big thing in Wales, isn't there? It's like a little bit more, maybe you'd say provincial or whatever. There's like that pride in their local club. And therefore, because they're quite a large way away, I think they're kind of competing. Whereas...
Well, I think it's all very provincial everywhere. Like you look at football teams, you've got two football teams in the same town. They like hate each other. It's like, which you can understand because they are actually competing against each other. Whereas a lot of these golf courses need to start thinking a lot more holistically and trying to promote the area as a destination. And whilst any one of these courses might be strong enough to attract someone to come specifically for the visit, if you work as a team and you say, well, you can come to these 3 courses, suddenly the proposition becomes a lot more a lot more viable. We've gone off topic slightly, but they were brilliant. And you want to go about this in a structured manner.
I do want to go about it in a structured manner.
You've got show notes, which is...
I do have some show notes. Would you like to go into the courses first, or would you like to talk about your own golf? I suspect this is going to be a 2-parter. So we can either leave the golf to the end.
Let's talk about the courses. Let's give the people what they want.
I think so. So there's 6 courses for us to cover here. There's Welshpool, Harlech, aka Rawson Davids, Borth Ynyslas, Aberdovey, Tenby and Pennard. And we'll talk about them in chronological order that we played them. Key characters, would you say, in terms of courses we played, who were the main characters that came through in the club's history?
Braid.
Mental, how much?
Braid got around.
Yeah.
I mean, if Braid was a dude in town, that was just doing his thing, you wouldn't have a good view of him. Like he would just been around everybody.
I think it's absolutely mental how much James Braid did. It took
so
us an
impressive.
eternity to drive around those golf courses, and he was doing this in a time where he wasn't hopping around in camper vans and doing 75 with ease.
Yeah.
And he won 5 Open Champions. He's won 5 more Open Championships than you.
He's also won an infinite amount more Open Championships than me. And what's interesting is from what I gather about the courses we visited as well, there wasn't a huge amount of change from the braid designs.
I think Aberdovey flipped back from some braid work, perhaps. I think that was
they
mentioned.
changed a little bit because they basically acquired a bit more land as the sea receded and Duneland sort of came about. But all in all, there wasn't a huge amount of tinkering across any of it. So largely you're playing a lot of original braid stuff.
I don't think it's braid's almost not very cool in some ways. All the images I've seen of him, he looks like he's in a sort of a brown suit with a bit of a fluffy moustache, a little bit hunched over.
He doesn't
have that same cachet as a Mackenzie or a Simpson in his Rolls Royce
he's
or whatever.
certainly not put in the same bracket as Colt or, like you say, Mackenzie or Willie Park Jr. He's talked about, with high regard, but no one is like, oh, James Braid's work, you've got to go see it. Probably because everything is James Braid's work.
Yeah.
And everything in Scotland, it's all James Braid.
He's criminally underrated, really.
Some of the bits, I mean, we'll get to the latter courses a bit later, but some of the bits in the latter courses were just otherworldly.
Crazy. So Welshpool, interestingly, is one of the more recent courses we played on our trip. So I think Braid opened that for play in 1930. Again, shows you the sort of the extent of the man's career when you think he was operating from pretty early 1900s. What was give me your first impression of Welshpool and what your sort of key takeaways were from it as a place.
Well, as you drive through mid Wales towards Welshpool, you're properly in Wales. There's valleys, there's mountains. You drive through the middle of the valleys. It's gorgeous, gorgeous drive in. You drive through the Welshpool as a town. You just come up on the right, and then there's the entrance to the golf club. Now, if there was ice or snow, it would have been genuinely horrendous.
You wouldn't have got up that drive.
No
It's
way.
like the Eiger.
It was so steep going up into that golf club, and you drive up this road. It's a one-way track, and you're driving up it thinking, Christ, I hope we don't meet anyone. We met a postman, so we had to do a bit of jiggery-pokery. Got up, and I didn't know what holes there were at the time, but as you sort of emerge, you cross the 17th and drive then. So you literally just straight across the 17th hole, and then drive basically perpendicular to the 18th, but perpendicular as in it's a yard off the fairway. So if anyone was playing the hole, you'd have to stop or whatever and drive up to the clubhouse, which is a beautiful little sort of bungalowy type thing.
It's very quaint, wasn't it?
Yeah, with a little sort of patterned veranda bit out the front, and I'm sure on a sunny, warm day it was absolutely glorious. But parked up, went inside, and had possibly the bacon sandwich of tour. Now I think we could probably go into best bacon sarnies. But
yeah, I mean that was bloody good, and I saw he was doing that on a George Foreman as well.
Yeah, took it seriously.
Yeah, it was really nice.
From the butchers in town, we asked him. I was like, "This is the best bacon sarnie ever."
Yeah, it was really cool, wasn't it? I thought it just had a really nice feel to it. I mean, it's really is minimalism golf. You know, there's like if you want to buy golf balls, there's like hundreds of them, all used in egg cartons.
He was so good.
I think they probably do sell new golf balls, but you know that it's real golfing minimalism. And I got there. I think I paid £95 or whatever for the three of us to play, and that was including a lap of coffees and bacon sandwiches.
And 18 holes.
And the course was in exceptional condition. We should say all of these places, I think it's a bit of a sort of broken record on this. It's been so wet the last 6 weeks. Like
Wet as February on record.
Ridiculously wet. Pretty much every course is closed. And Welshpool just was held up brilliantly. It's in those high moorlands. You stand on the car park, you look in any direction, you can see greens, all just sort of like perched up on the tops of the highest point of the land. Yeah, huge rolling terrain. And actually, when it was open in 1930, I think Braid made some sort of comparisons to Glen Eagles, where obviously, you know, some of his work there as well. And I suppose you can see that it's almost like a miniature Glen Eagles in some respects.
Without investment, yeah.
Yeah. Without a 6-star hotel and you know, high quality spa and friend of the pod Matthew Reed and any of this sort of stuff, you know. But it's one of those where you sit there and you're immediately excited and you're engaged. You want to go and play golf. And I just thought, wow, like, it's all well and good talking about these things, and it's like, oh, you know, there's a few people that talk about Welshpool. For 30 odd quid with a bacon sandwich, it's got to be up there with one of the best deals in golf.
Yeah, value for money. I'd say it's one of the highest, some of the finest order, and I think you'd probably clock up the most amount of heartbeats per round. I mean, it was some staggering climbs.
There was a couple of lung busters in there. Yeah. There was a couple of real lung busters.
I mean, this is akin to, if any of you have had the chance to visit the Cotswolds, maybe, it's a very similar landscape to, say, Cleve or a Kington or a Painswick. You know, that landscape that is draped across hills, but you still have to go up and go down the hills. So it's not like you just get to the top and that's fine, you're all playing golf. It's very cut around the land. So there's not enough maintained flat spot, is there? No, hardly any. You don't get to the top and go, great, we're up here. Around that 5, 6, 7 stretch, there's a tiny bit of flat spot on top of the hill up there. But you only play 2 or 3 holes up there before you back down somewhere else. So we should say anyone who's played the course several years ago, or when they were very young, like I was when I play a lot of these places, the routing has changed. So I'm going to say it was 13, 14, 15, which we didn't play. Yeah, so the current 13th is what used to be the first. Yeah, sounds about right. Which is basically the lower part of the land where you play down, you play across a crazy par 5, to be brutally honest with you. Crazy. About it's on the side of a hill, isn't it? Very rustic golf hole. Par 3 up, and then the closing stretch of holes, the last 3, which we'll talk about shortly. Which obviously would, staggeringly good. Are kind of trying to picture this. indicates that you've got a loop of 6 and a
Yes.
loop of 12.
A better way of putting it.
So what they did is they basically changed the starting hole so that you basically finish on stronger set holes. What's the takeaways from Welshpool?
I mean, loved the course length. You know, the fact that it's really hilly, it didn't feel short. But it is like 5,700 on the scorecard. So it is short. You've got plenty of opportunities to go for it. There's a lot of sort of scoreable half-par holes. There's plenty of jeopardy. Like, you get yourself on the wrong side of some of those greens because they're benched into hillsides and they've got steep runoffs. And, you know, in the summer, the ball would be running for days down those hills.
Oh, yeah.
Be like, what's the cheese rolling thing where they go running after it or whatever?
It's in Cheddar, isn't it? No, it's,
No, it's not Cheddar.
no, there's one of those Gloucester.
It's the one where they literally run.
Yeah,
they run off a hill
it's-
and break their legs
It's
and
somewhere in
necks.
Gloucester, isn't it? The cheese
Yeah.
rolling.
It's absolutely stupid. Would you ever do that?
Is it in Wells or Cheddar or? I don't think I'd do it now.
No. You see them and it's just literally limb-shattering stuff. You'd be running after the golf ball like that in the summer. So,
Zero bunkers.
Zero bunkers. Again, lots of courses like that, though, aren't they? Because it's sort of, I guess, kind of common land. I think they actually own the land from what I've read. But it is absolutely glorious spot to play golf. I would say there's probably about 5 or 6, like, just really good golf holes. Like, the architecture is fabulous. And then the rest, it's one of those where you're really appreciating where you are, you know? I think that's not every hole you're sitting there and just sort of falling to your knees and going, God, it's just absolutely ingenious. Some of it's just really beautiful places to hit a golf ball.
Well, some of the highest points up on the top, it is genuinely a 360 panoramic of
Yeah.
the whole of Wales, and you can see for tens of miles. It's a glorious place to play golf and is exposed to the elements. So it blew an absolute hoolie, which is kind of a theme for the trip, really.
Yeah.
But it really did blow hard when we were up there.
A few highlights for me. I mean, starting on a 250-yard par 4 up the hill with complete abyss to the right.
And Gorse on the left.
Yeah, really focuses your mind when you're there. You know, stepping up, really trying to use a bit of Duncan McCarthy in my golf. I'm going to come on to our golf shortly. But, you know, when you're faced with a pretty perilous opening tee shot, I thought that was actually quite interesting. Standouts for me, I thought 16, 17 were just phenomenal golf holes. The 16th is just like it's relatively short, but it's played uphill. And it is the most extreme sort of volcano green, isn't it? That's perched up, semi-dogleg to the left. The yardage on the card, you might look at it and go, oh, maybe I can thrash a driver up near the green. There's no way you can do that. And you've got to hit a really well committed shot. You want to leave yourself a nice, comfortable number. I just thought it was an exceptional golf hole.
And 17, just a phenomenal boundary hole. So you tee up and basically from you to the hole is a straight line of ferns, bracken. Yeah, everything to your
I think
right.
fern might be bracken.
Not sure. Everything to your right is ferny bracken dead as it drops off down the hill. So you're never going to look for it. Whereas everything to your left just opens up forever. So it's basically saying, how brave do you want to be? It's a gentle dogleg round to the right.
Yeah.
And it's basically saying, how brave do you want to be? Do you want to take that line on to that hole and leave yourself? You could drive it. It's 330 if the wind's right. You know, it's downhill. You've got an elevated tee shot. You're looking at as much as you've walked uphill on 16, you're hitting downhill on 17. So it's a really big downhill drive. And everything to your left just opens up for days, and it's how safe do you want to be? It's only a 330 odd yard par 4. Do you want to just knock it out to the left? And it's a great match play hole because it's, you know, if the match is in the balance, am I going to take it on? And if you're up, do you just play safe out to the left? And there's no real peril for playing out to the left because there's no penalty for just coming in. It's just going to be
Could hit at right angles, couldn't you, from the hole?
It's going to be a longer
left
shot, really. But wonderful golf hole, the 17th. I thought the 12th was probably the most memorable hole in the course.
Yeah, it's definitely the most memorable drive. You know, like, is that right? Yeah, it is 12, yeah. I mean, it is, like, it's an insane elevated tee shot. I mean, we should probably talk about the golf within this, shouldn't we? Because otherwise we'll be coming
We will
back
do
over
it.
old ground.
I think we can do it after we just finish the 12.
But
I want you to monologue for me.
I mean, if you get off on elevated tee shots, the 12th is going to do it for you. Like, that is, you play along, you know you're on higher land, you play this little par 3, the 11th, you get to the tee box, and it's a glorious drive, and it's so hard to actually pick a line because the fairway kind of runs at an askew angle. It's kind of shallow to play into. There is room if you go long. Left is Megadeth, as I found out. But it's beautiful. You just got the views in the distance. It is a completely memorable drive. That is where my experience of that golf hole started and finished, sadly.
Yes, you only hit the drive twice.
But you guys all quite enjoyed it.
But as you tee off, you are dozens of feet, 50 feet, 60 feet above where the ball's going to end up. And between you and where the ball's going to end up is a huge valley, huge drop, hundreds of feet. So you tee off across this valley with a fairway which is angled at say 45 degrees to you. So it's just one of those questions: is how much do you want to bite off? Do you want to try and go the hyper aggressive line? It's a 460 yard par 4, so it's stroke 1, it's the hardest hole on the golf course. It's begging for you to bite off more than you can chew.
Yeah, I just couldn't resist it.
And it, near enough the straight line to the green, it was like a 280 yard carry, and you could come further away from the green and give yourself 230, 210. I think you could have just nailed it down there 180 if you wanted. You would have just left yourself a million miles in because of the way that the fairway is angled. Then you get a slight elevation all the way up to the green, and the green just benched in front of the clubhouse. It was tremendously visual golf hole.
The bit that foxes me with places like Welshpool is every time we play a course like this, I just don't understand why we've sort of like resigned these courses to, sort of ancient history, really. They're sort of early 1900s. No one is going and building golf courses on moorland. And it works so well. Like, the ground is really good for golf. Yeah, it's hilly and it's a bit wacky, but the land kind of gives you the golf holes. There's not loads of like shaping to make that really interesting. And
I don't think they had any livestock at Welshpool, but also if you allow livestock to be involved, like Kington do and Cleve do, and you are really reducing what you have to do to maintain a playing surface on that type of land.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know, it's just a good ground for golf. Like, obviously we would rather build courses on the links or on the heathlands because you could argue they're even better, but they're pretty good places for golf courses, and they're pretty easy to deal with. It's like the land kind of gives it you. You can't do much about that 12th hole, can you? That's the land. You see the green. It's all kind of there, ready to be sort of mown in.
Let's talk about our golf and move on, because we're 30 minutes in, and this pod is seemingly going to be enormous. So,
well, we wanted to play. I thought it was quite an interesting format. We played on tour, the last place in every single game, had the honour, or on every single day rather, had to clean the clubs and had to clean the shoes. So,
Stableford, handicap.
Which was important, got some nice shiny new Titleist clubs, and FootJoy sent us pretty much seemingly all the new collection. So you were on the Premier LX with a blue band, and
tasty.
What were the other ones you were on?
Fields with a blue sole.
Blue sole. They're quite tidy actually with the blue sole.
Yeah, I thought they were the Ryder Cup shoe when I first got them.
I had a fresh pair of Fields, and I had some vintage Icons as well. And I think Jim was on the Fields with the brick sole.
And then the Traditions.
And I kind of got into cleaning my shoes a little bit. Got saddle soap at home. I got all the sapphire cream, mink oil, all this random stuff.
So we decided that whoever was going to be last on the day had to quite publicly, on film, clean the shoes up.
It was Jim quite comfortably, wasn't it?
On the first day, yeah.
Yeah.
Jim plays off 10. I'm 8. You played off 3. Unfortunately, on the first day, Jim doesn't. Let's caveat this. Jim doesn't play a huge amount of golf. He's got a full-time job. He's a very important person in the police. It's not like he's playing golf as much as we are. So his first day on tour, he found it a little more difficult. So he was cleaning clubs on day one and boots.
Your golf was very tidy all tour, Tom.
Thank you very much.
You've been working hard at your golf.
I have, yeah.
We've both been seeing the same coach.
We have. And he's telling us something different, which I think is always good, that, you know, that the coaching is personalised. But
You always say Simon Gabatas over in Hagley. If I'm honest, I've been working at it quite hard since January to try and I feel like I just need to become a bit more like resilient and minimise some of the high tariff stuff with my swing, where it can just get very shanky, very heavy, very steep. It can all start to, if the timing doesn't sync up. And I think it's fair to say you've been a bit, I don't know, you've worked very hard at your game, but I don't think when you've worked at things, it's always yielded the results you want.
And also, I don't think I've committed to it properly.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that I've never really dug in and said, yeah, this is it. It's going to be, I'm going to do this for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, and just stay at it, which is different.
But through a 3-month process, I mean, I would say like 6 weeks in, I was like, I'm not feeling any better at this game. I feel actually more uncomfortable over golf shots. And it would have been really easy to walk back from that, and just go back to old ways of playing. And I think we've both come out the other side. I thought most of this tour, you and I have both hit it better than we probably have done for the vast majority
Yeah, I'd say so.
of Cookie Jar.
But poor old Jim was cleaning his shoes on day one, and we had an hour and a half.
Yeah, and we were in an
50 meters.
Airbnb, weren't we? So there was absolutely no resources for him to clean the clubs. I think while we were downstairs chatting to our very kind host where we were staying, I'm pretty sure Jim was in a tiny little toilet with a sink. I mean, it was like, it was the size of a coffee
We had to
cup.
stop at a co-op to get him all the cleaning stuff. So Sam took the most pleasure in walking out. No, I think you're going to need this cleaning product. Oh no, you need like some scouring brushes now, right? Get a toothbrush because you're really going to want to get in those nooks and crannies. So Sam was just beaming with glee as he was picking out all these cleaning products in co-op before we went to the Airbnb, and then Jim was in this sink the size of a shoebox.
He took a lot of pleasure in that, though.
Yeah, well,
He took a lot of pride in it.
He
I wouldn't
wasn't
say
in a
pleasure,
chatty
actually.
mood, so I think he liked being locked away upstairs while we did all the chatting downstairs.
They came out nice, though, didn't they?
They did, and then we went to a local pub where a conversation arose that I'd like to address.
Okay.
I am 38 years old, and I still don't know what my favourite lager is.
Yeah, this foxed us, didn't it? This really foxed us. We
Yeah.
actually bumped into a barman in Aberdovey who knew his straight off the bat, and I was impressed. But it's a really good point.
It was a good debate that we had for a little while, and
I sort of like instinctively went Heineken, but
I just don't know. I think different temperatures yield different.
yeah.
I don't mind like a Corona if it's really hot. If it's like a nice warm sunny day and I'm sitting out there, no lime, just the Corona.
Okay.
I don't mind that. I think if it's a cold, I mean, I would probably have a Guinness if it's cold, but if I'm going to drink a lager, it'd be something a bit lighter.
Yeah.
But I don't know what it is.
It's weird how you don't have your own favourites. Spanish lager seems to dominate the taps in Wales for some obscure reason. It was either Cristchampo, Madri.
Madri's made a huge.
I don't like
offensive
San
into-
Miguel. It's not for me. The Senorita Beta, it's too chemically. 2
I don't
pints
mind-
of
I
it,
don't
I've
mind
got a
San Miguel.
headache.
I quite like San Miguel.
I like the light sort of. I mean, in America, I was a big Miller Lite guy. Big Miller Lite guy.
I just don't know what I like.
I'm sure other people feel the same, though. It's like you should know by now what your favourite lager is. You've had 20 years of practice at
And
this.
I've had like
Probably
2
more.
weeks to think about it, and I still don't know.
Yeah.
I know there's beers that I would choose not to drink. If I went there, I'm like, oh, no, I don't want that. Like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't order a Stella.
Yeah.
Not for me. Where
Or Styrofoam.
a Lef, I don't really like the white beers, like a Hoegaarden. Not for me.
Not a
Don't really
lager.
like IPA. And everyone likes
lager.
IPA. It's so cool.
It's not a lager.
I know. But
But there's so many different lagers, and we honestly couldn't seem to lay our finger on it. It was
the
quite a
barman-
bizarre place in Harlech, actually.
the barman in Aberdovey, just finally finishing on this one, just came straight out as a lager I think I've only had like once in my life with Peretti.
Yeah, it's nectar. Yeah. He was a smart guy.
Yeah, golfer. picked out your FootJoy logo on
you
your
said.
collar. I was like, oh, been golfing, lads. And then
Spot the
conversation
FJ on the
started.
collar. Where have you been? Yeah.
But yes, so perhaps we'll put a poll out to find out what
What's the
lines are
verdict
posted.
on Harlech as a place then? So it's like a fairly short drive in there. It is an unbelievable castle that sits up on the hill above the town, isn't it?
Yeah, well, digging into the history of it a little bit. When that castle was built back in the 1000s, and it's like nearly 1,000 years old, that castle. It sits highly elevated on a bit of a cliff, I suppose you could call it, as a hill, right over the top of the golf course. And anyone who saw the majestic shot that you hit down the second hole of Harlech, you'll see the
High
castle.
hands, Gabitas, constant radius.
You'll see the castle in the background. So it sits right above the links. But when that castle was made, it was on the shore. All that was underwater. The whole thing was underwater.
What?
Yeah. When that castle was there, that links is underwater.
So that petrol station we went to go and get the Lucasades in the morning, that wasn't there.
The castle is on the shore. It's a castle. It's there to protect them from invaders.
Isn't that extraordinary?
All that's underwater. And then in the last 1,000 years or so, as the water's receded, the links has come and the dunes are there, and it's now starting to come back the other way a little bit. But yeah, all that links was underwater when that castle was there.
So dynamic, isn't it? I mean, Rye's obviously an easy example, but we saw the same at Aberdovey. When we went through the archives there, it was like, yeah, that land wasn't there 50 years ago.
Yeah. So, I mean, Harlech's an interesting one because I've heard so much about it. Really good friend of ours, Sam Clapham, is a member there. He has tried his hardest for ages to get me there. As busy as we are, I always kind of say, I can't. I've been putting it off. And I was blown away. Conditioned, considering the time of year, condition was unreal. The way that the greens tie into the tees, the surrounds was kept so minty. The bunkering was sublime. It's all very naturalised. It's not revetted or anything like that. It's all very, not necessarily marram falling in, but long grasses, naturalised bunkers, and it's all really cleverly placed bunker. And I thought the place was great.
Harlech seems to be really, really well respected by low handicap players. And I think that's because it's quite a grown-up golf course. I think my memory of it, we're talking 25 years ago now, was it's nice, it's quite flat, you don't really get into the good bits for much of it. And that was a pretty wild take when I went back. I mean, it's just like, it's so long ago, I couldn't really remember it. But I remember you play a lot of holes quite close to the clubhouse. And for most of the round, you're sort of almost teased by seeing these huge dunes that are out in the distance. But actually, you look at the holes you're playing and they're really cool. Like really good designs, great green shapes. And it's a proper test of ball striking. Like it's a really tough test. That back nine, par 33, is monumentally difficult. Now we had a bit of an easier ride because a few winter tees and and that sort of just like makes it a little easier. They're doing some work to the 15th hole or whatever. But actually I was like, Christ, yeah, the run-in is so strong. Like the back, the last 10 holes are just epic, like absolutely epic. And it's just like you say, it's great to see just how you could sort of see how far they'd come in terms of looking after the golf course. The way it was all tied in, like Reese, shout out to Reese, he came out and walked a few holes with us. Yeah, lovely dog as well.
There.
Yeah,
great dog,
beautiful dog. It was all sort of tied in so brilliantly, and the way he'd done stuff with the teeing grounds to sort of drop things so that you could see the 14th par 3, which is a great hole with all the sort of knuckles on the short left of the green. And clearly, like all the bunkering stuff, it just looks time worn. And even though you know that's quite recent work, you wouldn't really know by looking at it. Yeah, amazing. It's weird how you play in the shadow of that castle as well so much. I forgot quite how imposing that is.
Yeah, and I think things that I'd heard about it going is the first few holes are very flat, which in a macro level they are, as in the green and the tee finish at the same spot and the same elevation, and you can see it. but the land in between it is very links. It's very rumpled. You know, it's not like it has those collection areas that links has. You know, there's like you'll just, and the land was so firm. I mean, we're going to go on about this during what seemingly is going to be a 3-part podcast, but it is so wet. It is categorically the wettest year to date in the annals of history. But the land was so firm, and it's just bouncy, and it ran, and it played brilliantly, and I'm sure it gets firmer when it's actually dry.
Yeah, I think that was great, wasn't it? Seeing irons chase in. Interesting bit of history. Apparently, the inception behind this golf course, someone came back from Australia. Now, a guy
pick up your show notes.
Harold Finch Hatton. It was originally used as a place to practice his boomerang skills.
That's not true.
I read it. It's been said on this podcast. It has become fact. Which, yeah, that was pretty niche, I thought. So I thought that was worthy of mention. I think the other thing is, again, Harlech.
Does it require links land for your boomerang skills? I suppose the boomerang doesn't dig into the farmland if it's...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know nothing about boomerang. We are actually sat here, and there's a wonderful copy of the centenary history of Royal St David's Golf Club. It's an updated 2nd edition. So the 1st edition obviously did very well. And I know why, because the chap who wrote it is a gentleman by the name of Richard Fisher. And I spoke to Richard. He's the president of the club at the moment. I spoke to him before we head out there. And he is unbelievably knowledgeable on the history of the club and the history of golf in Wales in general. Like, he was, honestly, it was like... I think it would probably be worthy of a sort of a short 30-minute sort of Course Diaries episode, because I just don't think I can do it justice. I couldn't retain the information he was telling me. But, you know, the ethos around the club has always been, you know, very much a club where, you know, going right back to history, people travelled out there for holidays and time on the coast, and the membership would be very much an away membership. So places like Raw North Devon would be quite a good example here. Spring meeting, autumn meeting, as opposed to monthly club medals. Now, the club will have evolved, no doubt, over time. But you can kind of see that when you look at the Roll of Honour that's on the boards. Boards are amazing there, like really good. Lots of great names, like some incredible names. But there's loads of familiar names from the Midlands. People like Terry Shingler, the Lunts, they're all on the boards there.
Blackwell members.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's a big haunt for sort of Midlanders travelling to the coastline. So it was, yeah, that was quite neat, really. But yeah, it used to be like a membership and then a local arts stand membership. Obviously, that
we saw another friend of the pod up there, didn't we?
Jamie Warman.
No, up on the boards.
Oh, Bill Longmuir.
Bill Longmuir.
You know him as the famous winner of the Tooting Bec Trophy.
Tooting Bec, yeah.
Yeah. Others will know him as a celebrated European Tour player and course architect.
And if those of you are interested in really good storyteller and stories, you can listen to the Bill Longmuir.
Do you know he led the 84 Open?
Yeah, well,
first round
comes up in that pod, doesn't it?
That's the one Savvy one. But yeah, Harlech, great course, stacks of history, very cool. They also have an unbelievable country membership proposition, which just everyone talks to me about, because I think it's quite easy to go and do. You can basically join for 350 quid a year, which is probably like a couple of green,
and stuff like that. But
I think there's a little bit of it. But yeah, I think it's quite an easy sort of like go and join as a country member, because the club just want to have affiliates that come down and travel there. And I think that's just a great model for it, which is really kind of what the club is about. It's a place that people travel to a couple of times a year and enjoy it. And yeah, loved it.
So we're halfway through our second day. So at Harlech we played in the morning.
Correct.
And then we did an hour drive south to Borth Ynyslas. Now at this moment in time, I'm going to offer you the option of whether we cut it there as part 1 and move on to part 2, or do we go to Borth Ynyslas and then cut it in half?
And we've got, 45 minutes on the timer?
We're on 50 minutes.
I think we're going to call it there, and you'll come back for part 2 to hear more about Borth Ynyslas.
Watch this.